Hey everyone, I'm going to talk a little bit about Force Awakens. I just saw it last night, had some time to sleep on it and think about it, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk major spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's a great movie, amazing actually. But if you have not seen it, don't watch this video, okay? Okay. So spoilers now. Okay. I'm going to start with the negatives and leave you with the positives because I do want to leave you with the impression this movie is great because it is. But I definitely want to talk about a few negatives I had of a few negative impressions I had of the movie because I feel like they need to be said because no movie is perfect and this is no exception. There's definitely a few things that I didn't like, so I'll get into them. Sometimes it was a little too wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience. And this is a fear I know a lot of people had, and they did a good job not going too far into this territory. It could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't bad. There was one line in particular that I could think of that bothered me, and that was when Leia was talking to Han about their son, and she said, "There's still light in him," and in my head, I was like, no, Leia, there's still good in him. There's not light in him. And I get that she was talking about the light side, and, it was just weird to me because she's force sensitive, sure, but she's not a Jedi. In this movie, it appears she was never trained, at least to be a Jedi, like formally by Luke or anything. And so it was weird for me. Like, it seemed kind of out of character for her. She's a powerful woman, but she's also a loving woman, and I could see her being a good mother. And so to say there's still light in him seemed kind of like pushing him away and seemed kind of cold. And I was like, this doesn't seem like Leia at all. Like, I would expect her to say, like, there's still good in him. I feel it, And so, yeah, and it felt like a little too, like, we as the audience know about the light side and the dark side, and we know that this movie is called The Force Awakens, so we're kind of expecting Force themes. And so that felt a little too much like, hey, audience, there's still light in him. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's still light in him. Cool. Yeah. Going along with this wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing, my biggest complaint about the movie was the Starkiller base. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, great, another Death Star. Yay, okay. And that was when I saw it in the posters and everything. And in the movie, I actually came around. I was like, when it first fired, like, I don't know, 5 lasers or something, and it like homed in and destroyed 5 planets. And I was like, okay, it's pretty destructive. Okay, cool. And then they showed the scale of it, and it was like 5 times bigger than the Death Star. And I was like, okay, that's okay. It's bigger, it's more powerful. I get this. And then it ate the sun, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Really, the sun eating was what brought me around. I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. It's not exactly a Death Star ripoff. It has different elements to it, and that's cool. And then they blew it up. It's like every Star Wars movie needs a Death Star to blow up. I don't know. It just bothers me because not only is it exactly the same kind of beats as Episode 4, and the whole movie is not this way at all. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the ending with the Death Star explosion is the same thing as Episode 4, which isn't inherently bad. Like, in a space, if you're in a space war, I get that you build super weapons like this, and I can understand that you'd keep building them because they're destructive and powerful. But this one, they had the potential to do something different with it, and they just didn't. They just blew it up. And so what I would have liked to see, two things. I would have liked to either see Poe get to do something else with his X-Wing, like piloting a different fighter run, just something that's not Starkiller base. And because Poe definitely needed something to do, and he needed more cool stuff, because Poe was an awesome character. So it doesn't bother me that Poe got to do something that's cool. It bothers me that they blew it up. And so what I would have liked to see is that they would have disabled it, but I wish it would have been alive. Like, it would have not blown up. And I think that would have been cool, because the threat would have still been out there, just kind of wounded. In the same way Kylo is still out there but wounded. And so yeah, I wish they would have kept Starkiller Base. I thought it was a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be. And then they just blew it up. It was like, okay, I guess we'll get something else in the next movie. So, okay. Oh, and one more thing about the Starkiller Base. With the Death Star, and this could definitely be nostalgia talking, I fully admit that. With the Death Star in Episode 4, I really felt a sort of tension, that, like, it's a 70s movie, and, it's a campy adventure, so they're not going to actually blow up the good guys, but you sort of feel like they could, and that feeling is important. With this Starkiller Base, I never really got that feeling. Like, I never felt that they were in danger, because I know 2 more movies are coming, and to blow up the Resistance base in the first movie it would have blown my mind. Like, it would have been a huge left field, like, whoa. But they didn't do that. And so I never felt, they're like, it'll fire in 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. It'll fire in 2 minutes. Okay. It'll fire in 30 seconds. Okay. Like, it didn't do much for me. I'm trying to think if there's a way they could have done it better. I think they did as best they could. It was sort of a weird thing, I think, to put in. Like, the base itself wasn't weird to put in. It was just trying to tie it up in the last bit of the movie. They didn't have to tie it up. You don't have to blow it up. And I wish they would have done that. So, another common complaint I see, and a complaint I definitely had myself, is that, like, what the hell is going on with the Republic? And, like, this movie is very, very fast paced, and you're never bored, which is great for a Star Wars movie. But they could have definitely, especially with Leia, they could have definitely explained a little more about what went down, because as I understand it from what I got from the movie, the Republic won and is now the new governing body. They've reinstated the Senate and is the governing body of the galaxy. So they're the new empire, but obviously not an empire. And then the First Order is a splinter group that's risen from the empire, the empire's ashes, and their whole purpose is to hunt down Luke Skywalker, which that purpose at first really bothered me, because I was like, it's way too fanboyish. Like, why would this whole order want to hunt down one Luke Skywalker? Granted, Luke was instrumental in overthrowing the Empire, but, like, you don't need, like, an army to hunt down Luke Skywalker. But I came around to it later when you found out that Luke was training Jedi, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, that's why you'd want to hunt this guy down, because not only is he a threat, the people he's training are a threat. And it makes more sense to me now. But anyway, so they're the splinter group, and then the Resistance, led by Leia, is like a direct opposition to the First Order. Like, they want to essentially protect Luke, and prevent the First Order from, wiping out the Senate, wiping out freedom. Which, okay, sure. But why isn't Leia with the Republic? And that's really one of the big questions I have, especially because before the she fought, she was a princess, and so she was clearly like a political figure, and she knew politics, and that was one of her strengths. She was like very quippy, and she was witty, and she was smart. She was very smart, and so why isn't she a politician? And I'm not saying that I didn't like her in her role as general. I thought she was great, but why? And I'm hoping that the future movies will explain that a little more. It didn't like make me mad. Like I think I understand it, but it just could have been explained. The humor in this movie, I loved the humor. My complaint is not the humor. There was great lines. The only complaint I have about the humor is one specific line, which was delivered by Kylo Ren, and it's when he throws his first temper tantrum, and he's slicing up a console in his ship, and one of his subordinates, I think his subordinate told him BB-8 escaped or something, and so he's real mad, and then he turns his head and goes, "Anything else?" And it was a funny line, like I laughed, but I thought about it and I was like, actually I don't like that, because Star Wars definitely has humor. It's always had humor, and there's always a place for humor in Star Wars. But not every character has to be funny. And that's a big issue I have with Disney's Marvel movies, is that every character is funny. And a lot of the jokes are good, but especially when you've got a character like Ultron, who is an AI trying to destroy the world. He doesn't have to be funny, okay? It's like, and granted it was only one line, so it didn't really bother me that much, but I'm saying this more as like a slippery slope kind of thing, where if they don't control it, if they don't keep the humor tonally correct and like keep it to the right characters, it can go out of control, and I really don't want that to happen, especially in Star Wars. So I'm a little worried about that. But I'm confident that, based on this movie, I'm confident that they do understand Star Wars, and so I'm not too worried. I'm just, it's a thing that could happen. I don't want Star Wars to turn into the Avengers. Last complaint. There were some redundant lines, and because it's still at least partly a kids movie, I get this. Some of the exposition is needs to be a little more clearly spelled out for kids, and it's fine. But still, I felt like there was some lines that just really did not need to be there. One of them was when Rey first meets BB-8 on Jakku, and he's in like a bag, and this guy's got him, and she cuts him loose, and it says like, "Oh, that's that alien's name. He just wants you for spare parts." And in my head, when she said that, especially because her delivery on that line was a little weird. Overall, she was great, but that one line she delivered a little weird, I thought. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, the visual of this alien riding like a dewback creature with junk on it, and like with a trash poker, and like bags and stuff. I know he's a junker. Like, I get that. You don't need to say that that's who he is. And that kind of bothered me a little bit, more than it probably should have, but it bothered me. And another one that actually really did bother me, and I need to see the movie again to make sure that this is really how I feel about this line, because I could have just not really understood what was happening. I don't know a better way to say it, but there's a point when Han and Leia are talking about Kylo, their son, and they're like, "Our son, we lost our son, our son, our son. we lost him to the dark side, to Snoke. Snoke seduced our son to the dark side, and we lost him. And it felt like, by that point in the movie, I already understood that like that Kylo was their son, and they lost him to the dark side, and Snoke seduced him. That's what they said to each other, and I was like, so I already knew that, and then they said that, and I was like, fine, okay, but they just kept saying it. They were like, our son, we lost him, and I was like, I know you lost your son, and I get that, and like, on one hand, I'm glad they had that, because they also had a good part in that scene where they like explained like that's why they split up, because they lost their son. But I felt like the dialogue could have been handled a little tighter there, and again, the delivery I felt was just a little weird, especially on Leia's part there, on Carrie Fisher's part. These are all fairly, aside from Starkiller, these are all fairly small complaints that just took me out of it a little bit, and definitely did not like ruin the movie for me at all. I loved the movie. I loved it. Just these small things, like, I think the reason I nitpick these small things is because it was so close to being perfect. And these small things it was so close. And it's a little frustrating. But all that being said, let's talk about the good things, and there were plenty of the good things. So this is a very character-driven movie, and every character was great, especially the new characters were fantastic. Talk about Kylo Ren for a second. Kylo Ren was my favorite character in the new movie, which was weird to me because I thought I wouldn't like him that much. I thought the whole Sith fanboy thing was dumb. I thought he was going to be like kind of like a poser, which he was, but they played it so right. Like, he was all those things that I was worried he was going to be, but they twisted it and made it good. And that was awesome. So he's like one thing. He's a Vader fanboy, and he calls Vader Iron Father, and I was like, cool. It's one line, and he doesn't refer to him as Iron Father at any other time, but when he's looking at the mask, he says, "Show me the power of the dark side, Iron Father," or something like that. And I was like, cool. He's Iron Father. That's cool. So yeah, and I loved how Adam Driver looks. Like, he has kind of a baby face, and I love that because he's this whiny, almost annoying kid with just throws tantrums, but he's powerful, and that's cool. And that's what Anakin should have been in the prequels. Like, this is a perfect character. This is a perfect Skywalker falling to the dark side character. Like, a very powerful but volatile kid, basically. Rey was great. This could be a little sexism in me. Sorry if it is. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about a female lead character in Star Wars, because every other Star Wars has had a male lead character, but she killed it. She was great. She actually outshone any of the male people, I think, and the males were really good, but she was better, and that's awesome. And I'm so excited to see her as the new lead. I assume she's going to be the new lead, at least one of them. Her like mechanical skill was really fun, especially her interaction with Han, and Han being like immediately being like, "You're good. Do you want to join my crew? Like, you're amazing." And she was like, "I gotta go back." Some people think she's Luke's daughter, and some people think it's obvious that she's Luke's daughter. I don't think it's obvious. when I first was like introduced to the idea that she was a Force user, I was like, oh, Luke's daughter, okay. And then when I walked out of the theater, I was like, but wait, what if she's not? Because it's never like explicitly stated one way or the other. Like when Maz Kanata asks Han who she is, it cuts away before he answers. So like, I thought, what if it's Han's daughter from like another mother, maybe? And it's a possibility. After reading a little bit and thinking about it, I actually do think she is Luke's daughter. I think that way again, and I think that perhaps her mother is another Jedi, and so that was killed. And so, like when Luke sees her, he just like it brings back everything, like all his failures, and he's like, oh no, like I can't, no, you can't make me do this, not again. And Luke put her on Jakku to protect her, which is sort of a cool thing because, you know, Luke hated his own life on Tatooine so much, but he realizes that like that's the only way to keep her safe because he can't do it himself. He's not strong enough because, you know, he lost his Jedi, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's an interesting character development for Luke to be like, even though I hated my life, I need to protect you, and even if you hate me, if you're safe, that's all I care about. I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad parenting, but it's an interesting idea. I like it. Finn was great. His development throughout the thing was fun to see him. You know, he didn't really know who he was in the beginning because he was taken from his family and trained to be a soldier, and then he was like, this is not kosher, I've got to get out of here. And so he was super fun. He and Poe together were a really fun duo. I'm looking forward to seeing them more. I liked how kind of unsure about things he was, but he still did them, and that's a very Star Wars-esque character, and I like that. And I called from like a very long way back that Finn was not going to be like the main Jedi. It still is open. He could technically be a Jedi because we don't know who his parents are, and there was some maybe hints of Kylo sensing the Force, but I took that more as Kylo sensing like this guy was different than the others, like he wasn't doing his job, and so that's what I got. Like that's what the sense thing for me was, not that he was force sensitive. And I would be okay either way with him being a Jedi or not. I'm leaning towards not wanting him to be a Jedi because I just think it'd be interesting. But it was fun to see him use a lightsaber for a while, and it was fun to see someone with no Force training use a lightsaber, because that's always one thing I've thought about. Like, granted, lightsabers are the Jedi's weapon, and to be any good with them, you need the Force, because you need to be able to, you know, sense your surroundings and not cut yourself in half. But it's not like a normal person can't pick up a lightsaber like Han did in Episode 5. And so that was a fun thing to see someone actually fight with a lightsaber, but not a Force user. That was cool. Poe, I mentioned him and Finn together were really fun. I loved Poe. I thought he was super fun as like a snarky, awesome pilot. His interaction with Kylo in the very beginning was super funny. He was like, you know, on the ground, like, do you talk first? Do I talk first? What has his work? And I laughed out loud. It was really funny. Him coming back in the X-Wing, it wasn't like a surprise like we saw from the trailers he was going to come back, but it was still such a good moment. I cried a little bit when the X-Wings were flying over the water. I was just like, they're back. The X-Wings are back, man. Yeah, so that was great. BB-8, the adorable little ball. At one point, Han Solo says, "Move, ball." I don't know, this line just killed me. It was so funny. Yeah, but BB-8 was great. He gave Finn a little thumbs up with his lighter. When he was like shocking Finn when they were interrogating him, that was really funny. BB-8 was great. A really good R2 substitute. and I don't mean to say that like he's like a lesser R2 or anything. He's like a great. He fills the role of like the cute robot that R2 filled before, but he fills it perfectly. So it's not like he's a lesser R2. He's just a different cute robot. Um, and I liked the little interaction he had with R2, and I'm curious how they're going to go with that in the future. Whether R2 is going to be like killed off and BB-8 will take over, or if it'd be kind of like a big brother little brother dynamic, which would be cool too. I could definitely see that happening. R2 being kind of like a almost like a grandpa by now. You know, he's seen some crap. You know. Okay, Han Solo and Chewie. So I'm talking about Chewie first. Chewie was really good in this movie. It was fun to see Chewie do something other than just kind of being the walking carpet. In 6, he fired his bowcaster a few times. Oh, he did that in he fired a stormtrooper. What is it called? D11? Maybe that's the wrong name. He fired a stormtrooper blaster in Episode 5, and he helped them escape. But he carries C-3PO. But he's never really like had a role besides helping, and he was still that role in this movie, but he got to do more stuff too, and that was fun to see. And it was fun to see him get emotional. Like he actually had like emotional responses to things besides just being angry. And he was angry, and that was fun, but he also was like hurt and very he gets shot at one point, and like the sound he makes is heartbreaking. He's like, "Arr!" And it's so sad. It's like, Chewie, no. And then Han, and Han was Harrison Ford playing Han exactly how I hoped it would be. It was great. He was just like a grumpy old Han Solo, and that was great. He had some of the best lines in the movie. It's like, "Oh, you're cold." It's like, that's not how the Force works. When Rey is talking about how fast the ship is, it's like 14 parsecs, 12. Yeah, he was great in this movie. For how much screen time he had, which was a lot, I totally bought it the whole way through, which was great to see. Like he can still come back and be Han Solo after all these years. Overall, great. And then, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm about to say. If you haven't, leave. Han Solo dies. Han Solo is killed by Kylo Ren, and it's not like I didn't see it coming. You know, Harrison Ford has wanted Han Solo dead for the past 3 movies, but it was like, no, Han's dead. That being said, though, his death was very much fitting. Going back to Chewie for a second, just briefly, it was really fun to see Chewie when Han died be like, and just like Hulk out and just start shooting at stormtroopers like, no. And he shot Kylo Ren, which is sweet. Chewie helped them. Like, I'm pretty convinced that one of the reasons Kylo lost was because Chewie shot him. And anyway, so that whole scene where the confrontation between him and Kylo was great. The lighting was awesome when there was like the beam that came in and like highlighted them, and then the sun, like as he's grabbing the lightsaber, the sun goes out and it lights up red. It was great, and I really thought the death was fitting. You know, you might have expected Han Solo to go out more guns blazing, being the smuggler and everything. Shoot first, ask questions later type of guy, but I really think this death was indicative of his character and his character progression throughout the movies. So, you know, in the first movie, he's very much the smuggler who only cares about himself and the money. He doesn't want to have connections. He doesn't want to have friends. But he comes back, and that's the sort of beginning of his, you know, his heart of gold growing. And throughout the movies, he develops this heart of gold until at the end, you know, he's fully part of the resistance or the rebels, and he's ready to fight for this cause that's right. And in this movie, he goes full that direction, and that's interesting to see, because he's still very much the smuggler who, on the surface, only cares about himself. But when he's with Kylo, Kylo says, I'm conflicted. I need you to help me. And Han Solo says, anything. So Han Solo will do anything for someone else. And that's something that, like, the episode 4 Han Solo would have never said. And that was cool for me. I really liked that, especially because Kylo was his son. And so that was like a heartfelt moment. It's like, anything, I've, like, you are the one thing in this universe that I love and will do anything for. And then Kylo just kills him. And I was like, oh no. It just ignites the lightsaber, stabs it through him, pushes him into the pit, and it was rough. I didn't like cry or anything at that part, but it was like, oh no. Oh no. So yeah, so Han is dead. But I thought it was a great character, beloved by many, and I thought this was a great way to, like, send him off right. I thought this was a good death for Han. Going back to Leia for a second, I thought Carrie Fisher did a really good job, and I thought she looks great in this movie, especially compared to how she looked prior to. I totally bought her as, like, an older, wiser Leia. Still kind of quippy, but has this serious gravitas to her. I liked that a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing her in her role as General. I hope we get to see more commanding out of her. The one thing I wish we would have saw, and this is a common complaint too, that she would have had a moment with Chewie, because Chewie, Han was Chewie's life bond and best friend, and Han was to her. It never said if they were, like, married necessarily, but they were definitely together. They had a deep bond. Obviously, they had a child together, at least one. And so yeah, it was a little weird that, like, they didn't have a connection at the end. It was just fun to see her again. Because she was never, like, the main fighter. So it was fun to see her in kind of like a role where she doesn't have to fight, but she's still very much important and commanding, and like, you take her seriously, and that's cool. I really like that for her character. And then Luke is not really in this movie at all. I probably a total of 2 minutes, maybe, not really even, maybe 1 minute. With Luke, I'm going to talk about the vision Rey has when she touches his saber. No. Not like that. When she finds the saber in that box, I really, really, really liked that scene, because that scene was legitimately creepy, and that's something that Star Wars doesn't have a lot of. Like, the Minot Cave was a little creepy, but overall, and some of the when Luke is hunting for Vader in Episode 5, that was kind of creepy. But overall, Star Wars doesn't have too much creepiness, and so that scene was really cool. It was unsettling, I thought, especially to hear, like, classic quotes from both Obi-Wan and Yoda, but used in, like, a weird way that was, like, scary to Rey. I liked that a lot. You totally understand why she'd be like, no, I'm not touching this thing ever again. I don't want to do anything to do with the Force. I don't want to be a Jedi. This is BS. Like, I'm out. And so in this vision, you see the shot from the trailer of Luke with his hand in R2-D2. And that was like, in the trailer, it was cool, but in the movie, in the context, it was so much cooler. I was like, yeah. And then they show the Knights of Ren. I am so excited for the Knights of Ren. I'm actually glad they weren't in this movie much at all. They were in it for like 2 seconds, just as like we exist, because it would have been too much to have them in this movie. Like I don't want them. I want them to be perfect, so I don't want them rushed or anything like that. I'm just glad. I'm happy we got to see them, and I'm happy we got to figure out what their deal is. And their deal is they killed all the Jedi. Like Luke was training this new generation of Jedi, which is awesome. And then Kylo defected and created the Knights of Ren and was like, "All right, guys, we're going back. We're killing everybody," and they did. They killed there's you can see in the trailer too. There's just a field of bodies just dead, and like, oh man, I'm so excited. Like these guys they better be the absolute baddest of asses. I need this out of them. And it was cool that we got to know that Kylo is actually the leader of them. So it makes sense since he's the defector and he's the one with the Force powers and the lightsaber and everything. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the Knights of Ren, man. Luke himself, though, the actual scene where we saw Luke's face was at the end, and I thought we weren't going to see Luke at all. I thought when she took off in the Falcon, that was going to be it, and I was like, Abrams, don't do this to me. And then she keeps going. She goes in Lightspeed. I'm like, Abrams, come on, man, give me Luke, man. And she goes to the watery planet, and she goes to the island, and I'm like, the island, that's where Luke is, give me Luke. And she starts climbing this island, and that was a cool scene because it was like a, climbing the mountain to see the master thing from like old kung fu movies and stuff. I really liked that. And she finally gets to the top, and Luke's there, and he's got his back to her, but he senses her and turns around, and it's really subtle acting on Mark Hamill's part, but really good acting, and he's got this face, this like, why are you here? I can't. I've lost so much, and I've made so many mistakes. Don't ask me to do this, to train you. And she's holding out his lightsaber to him like, I need you to help me. I need you to come back. I need you to train me. This is, like, I need this. And I did feel that scene went on a little, like, weirdly long. Like, it, like, circled them as, like, weird, but okay. I was just happy to see Luke, man. He looked great. I'm so excited. I love Mark Hamill. So excited to see him more in the next movies. We hope we see him more. I hope we get to see some conflict there. Like, I don't think episode 8 will take place directly following episode 7. I think there'll be some time in between, similar to Empire Strikes Back. I think there'll be months, maybe years. I don't know. But both Rey and Kylo will be training in that interim time, and they'll come back stronger, and it'll be much cooler when they do. But I hope we get to see that conflict of Luke being like, I tried and failed, and I can't, like, I don't want to lose more people because of me. The Jedi should just die with me, and because it's a realistic thing. He lost everything. And in a certain sense, he's responsible for the death of all these Jedi. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to a little more of a tortured Luke Skywalker. I'm looking forward to it. I don't want a dark side Luke Skywalker, and we're not going to get one, so it's not really an issue. But it's, I just want like a tortured Luke Skywalker. Like he has remained good, but the consequences of being good have hardened him a little bit, and that would be cool. Moving on from characters a little bit, the fight choreography in this movie was amazing. It was a very great blend of the emotionally fueled fights of the original trilogy, with a little bit of more flair from the prequels, but not too much. There wasn't any flips. There was a couple. Kylo did some spin moves, but it made sense coming from him because he was like a brash, overconfident kid, and So his spin moves, they character wise, it makes sense for that character to do that. I thought, again, the crossover was awesome. I thought when Kylo fought Finn, that was really fun because Finn got some hits on Kylo, but overall Finn just got whooped. Like Kylo whooped this guy, and that was cool to see because even though Kylo's injured, which is another cool thing, the whole, like, when he beat his chest to, like, beat the blood out of him, I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then the first time he did it, I was like, that's cool. And for some reason, the second time he did it, I liked it like 10 times more. Like, he was sort of like walking away from Finn and was just like, tush, 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 and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, so the choreo, and when they were fighting, and then I was like weirdly hoping for this to happen in some way, when Kylo and Finn crossed sabers, and then Kylo like cut into Finn's shoulder with the cross of his cross saber. I was like, yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. And then when Finn gets whooped, and then Rey like gets up, and it's a really cool homage to the Hoth scene where he gets the thing with the Wampa. She gets the Luke saber and fights Ren, and it's awesome. It's so great. She and a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people are mad because, like, why would Kylo lose this fight to this newbie? At this point, he's like messed up. He's been shot. He's been like stabbed a couple times by Finn, and so like, and he's also overconfident. So it makes sense that he loses, and he doesn't lose. He just is like bested. There's a difference to me. Like he doesn't die. He's just bested, and yeah, so I totally get why he would lose, but it was still an awesome fight. The one thing I wasn't totally sold on in that fight was when Rey blocked the saber and then like meditated there for a second, or not even a second, it was like 7 seconds, and that felt a little long to me because obviously from Kylo's perspective she wasn't meditating there for like 7 seconds, but from our perspective she was, and it felt a little weird. Like you're in the middle of this fight, like don't meditate for 7 seconds. But I get why, like it was showing the Force was like, awakening in her and stuff like that. So it wasn't like a huge complaint. It was just a little weird, I thought. I loved when Finn fought the trooper, got his butt whooped for the first time, and then Han just shot the trooper. One thing that I would have liked to see, both with that trooper and the trooper in the very beginning that like blood swipes Finn's mask, I would have liked to see just the smallest of development. It could have, like, for the first guy, the blood swipe guy, all I would have wanted to see is like a shoulder, like when they're in the drop pod, a hand on Finn's shoulder. That would have been it. That's all I would have needed to see, just to be like just a little more like emotional. I get like there's an emotional attachment a little more because the way it stands in the movie now, it's just kind of like a trooper dies, and I didn't really get a sense of like brotherhood from the troopers, so it was just kind of like a guy that died, and it would have been nice, just the smallest of development would have made it just a little better. And with the shock trooper guy, just the smallest of development of like a rivalry, and it would have been with this one, it would have been a little easier to like go wrong, so I'm okay with that they didn't do this, but done right, I could have seen like in that same first scene where Finn refuses to shoot the villagers, I could have seen the shock trooper being like, as they're walking back to the thing, being like, "Hey, dude," like kind of like pushing him or something, like, "What's your problem?" Something like that. Just the smallest of development. So like, it's not just random troopers that are relevant to Finn. Or, like I said, if we would have gotten a sense of brotherhood, that would have been fine, because then, like, all the troopers are brothers, so it makes sense. Or sisters, I don't know if there are female stormtroopers in canon yet. In First Order, rather. But that would have been, like, I think that would have taken a little more time to expand if they went that route, so... But regardless, the choreography was great. And the new stormtroopers and their weapons, they felt really good. Like, the weapons felt more damaging and, like, threatening this time around. Especially Chewie's bowcaster. It just, like, blew people away. And that was fun. Han trying it out, which was a little weird. They never tried it out in, like, 40 years they were together, but whatever, it was fun. Yeah, so I really liked the new weapons, the new blasters. They felt good. When Rey was, like, furiously shooting at Kylo, and Kylo was like, no, and just blocking everything, that was fun. The weird alien monster escape thing was actually really fun. I liked it. When Han first meets Rey and Finn, and he's smuggling these dangerous creatures back. And then Rey, to try to help Han, resets the circuits or whatever she does, but she resets the wrong circuits and releases these crazy monsters, and that was a fun sequence, and it was something that I didn't feel really had a precedent in Star Wars, which was cool. A lot of this movie was similar beats to Episode 4 and 5, and that makes a lot of sense because you want to make viewers feel comfortable who have seen the first movies, like, we got this, it's still Star Wars. But to see these new elements is also really great, and in a way I feel like it was kind of in Episode 5 when they wanted to do this thing with the Wampas in the Hoth base. If you've never seen the deleted scenes, there's like a whole subplot where Wampas attack the Hoth base while the Empire does, and like it's kind of like a weird sort of slasher-y thing. Like they pull stormtroopers into like doors and stuff, and it's like kind of weird. And the effects are really bad, so like it was rightfully cut. But this felt like kind of, now that we have the technology, let's do this, but good. Let's like actually do this. And that was fun. I liked it a lot, and it was also a fun thing for Han, for Rey, for Finn, for all of them to like do. It was like a fun interaction. So I liked that a lot. The CGI, the mix of CGI and practical was really good. Even though the monsters were CGI for pretty much the whole, I think for all of it, it didn't take me out of it. I thought it looked good. And especially because they were so alien, it like didn't bother me at all. Overall, though, the CGI and practical effects were very well done. Oh yes, and the one last thing I mentioned, I cried when the X-Wings came out, and talking about the mix of CGI and practical. The X-Wings, man, yeah, they were so good. The X-Wings were everything I wanted them to be in this movie. I wish we'd gotten to see more of them. I mean, we didn't get, like, it wasn't like they had a small part, but I wanted to see more. So bravo. The X-Wings are one of my favorite parts of the movies, and so happy they got to come back. Yeah. So my last kind of thoughts on this movie. Great movie, obviously. Go see it. Go see it twice, 3 times. Help it break records. When I was born in '95, so I was, for the prequels, I was pretty much exactly their target demographic, maybe slightly young, but pretty much right there. But I saw the prequels before, or I mean, I saw the original trilogy before I saw the prequels, and I always liked I always liked the original trilogy better. But growing up as a kid, I obviously liked the prequels because they were for kids, really, and I didn't care about the plot holes or the weird acting because there was fun action, and Jedi and woo. And now that I'm older, I can look back and see, like, I understand why I liked it, and I understand the prequels definitely have good parts, but overall they fall short in a lot of areas. And so to be part of this Force Awakens, to see it, the day that the night it comes out, I really feel like I've kind of experienced Star Wars for the first time. Like, it wasn't just that I got to see Star Wars, as a movie. Like, I was there. I saw it. I saw it. I was there for Star Wars, and that's a really fun feeling to me, who's always been a huge fan but could never really, like, claim Star Wars, and now I can, and I feel like I watch a Star Wars movie. So really well done. Super happy with Abrams, super happy with Kathleen Kennedy. Really looking forward to where the movies are going to go in the future, and yeah, I'm really happy. Thanks for listening. Oh, and Snoke, real quick. I like Snoke. And some people think that his like massive form was stupid, and that he's just projecting himself really big, like Sidious did in VII. Which, sure, that'd be fine with me, but part of me really wants him to be 15 feet tall or taller. I don't know exactly. Like, he was big, and why? Because I think it'd be an interesting parallel to Yoda, because Yoda is all about size doesn't matter, and I'm not saying that Snoke would make size matter. I'm saying that I don't want to see him wield a tree-sized lightsaber. Like, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I want him to be, like, sort of, because he's clearly, like, he knows the Force. I want him to be, like, a manifestation of the dark side, and, like, because Yoda was small and controlled and pretty much, like, more or less, at least in the original trilogy, the pinnacle of the light side. And I want this guy to just be ferocious and, like, brutal, and the pinnacle of the dark side. Like, this thing, the Supreme Leader Snoke, like, maybe he was different at one time, but the dark side corrupted him so fully that he's this, like, beast, this massive beast. And I think that'd be cool. Like, I'm not ruling out, like, the idea of him being big yet. I think that'd be cool. And whether or not he turns out to be Darth Plagueis, it'd be cool. I would be down for that. I'd be down for some Darth Plagueis action. And especially after Palpatine was like, I killed him in his sleep, and it's like, no. But yeah, Snoke is cool. I liked his interactions with Kylo, and I liked his interactions with General Hux. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him in the future. I think he's cool. I think he has a lot of potential to be really cool.